The restaurant, The Garden in Madrid, is famous for its exquisite Spanish cuisine and elegant atmosphere. Jack, a senior waiter, walks confidently among the tables, impeccably dressed in a black suit. His smile is charming, but his cold eyes calculate potential tips. "Good evening, Mr. Garcia. How are you today? What a pleasure to have you back at the Garden," Jack says to a regular customer, offering him a glass of wine. Jack knows exactly whom to pay attention to. Well-dressed customers who will likely leave big tips. In contrast, Carl, a junior waiter, feels a bit nervous, but is visibly attentive. He is helping an elderly couple settle at their table, ensuring they are comfortable. "Would you like a blanket for the cold? Or perhaps an extra pillow?" Carl asks with genuine concern, adjusting the chairs and smiling warmly. The tension between the two waiters is palpable. Jack approaches Carl, watching how he accommodates the couple. "Carl, remember that appearance is everything here. The new owner will come today and we have to impress," Jack says in a condescending tone. Carl nods, but his eyes remain focused on the customers. The evening progresses and the restaurant is in full swing. Jack, charming and superficial, continues to court high-profile customers, while Carl, with his humble and attentive approach, silently earns the respect of everyone around him. Despite Jack's warnings about the importance of appearances, Carl remains true to his philosophy of service from the heart. Jack, moving with calculated arrogance, briefly stops next to Carl. "Don't forget that tonight is important," he says with a hint of sarcasm. Carl, unfazed, calmly responds, "For me, every night is important, Jack. Every customer deserves the best." The difference in their approaches is clear. While Jack sees every customer as an opportunity to get a big tip, Carl sees every customer as an opportunity to provide genuine and attentive service. The main door opened and a group of young professionals entered the establishment, filling the atmosphere with vibrant and noisy energy. It was evident they were celebrating something important. The group, consisting of 5 people, was dressed in casual business style. Some carried laptops, and others chatted animatedly on their cell phones, discussing details about the future of their newly acquired company. Their voices rose above the restaurant's soft murmur, catching the attention of several diners. Jack, always alert to opportunities, quickly approached the group with a wide smile. "Good evening and welcome to the Garden. Celebrating something special tonight?" he asked, his voice imbued with a calculated tone of enthusiasm. One of the young men, clearly the leader of the group, responded with an equally wide smile. "Yes, we just sold our startup. We want to celebrate in style." "Congratulations. Let me offer you our best table and a bottle of wine from our cellar on the house," said Jack, pointing to a table near the window that offered a panoramic view of the street lit by lampposts. The group accepted with enthusiasm, and Jack turned to Carl, who was finishing attending to an elderly couple. "Carl, prepare the table for our special guests. Make sure everything is perfect," ordered Jack, with an authority that brooked no argument. Carl, although slightly nervous about the attention the group attracted, nodded and got to work immediately. His focus and meticulousness were evident in every movement as he set the table with precision. He placed the cutlery exactly, adjusted the wine glasses, and checked that everything was impeccable. The group settled at the table, and the conversation continued to flow animatedly. They talked about their future plans, potential expansion, and the challenges they faced. Jack, always attentive, stayed close, ensuring they lacked nothing and hoping for the opportunity to earn a good tip. Meanwhile, Carl continued working silently but efficiently. He brought the promised bottle of wine and began serving each group member with care. His calm and professional attitude contrasted with the group's exuberant energy, but his dedication was unwavering. "This wine is excellent," commented one of the young men after taking a sip. "Thank you for the recommendation." "It's a pleasure," replied Carl with a genuine smile. "If you need anything else, don't hesitate to let me know." Jack watched the interaction with a mix of satisfaction and anxiety. He wanted to ensure everything went perfectly to impress the customers and eventually the restaurant's new owner. However, he couldn't help but notice the way Carl handled the situation with a calmness and efficiency he himself found difficult to replicate. The night progressed, and the group continued enjoying their celebration. Amid laughter and toasts, the atmosphere at their table was one of joy and optimism. Carl remained attentive to their needs, refilling glasses, bringing additional dishes, and ensuring everything was to their liking. Meanwhile, Jack kept an eye on the wealthier customers, calculating in his mind the potential tip he hoped to receive. However, something in Carl's silent dedication began to unsettle him. Although he initially delegated the task to Carl to handle more lucrative matters, he couldn't help but feel a pang of envy for the genuine connection Carl was establishing with the group. The group's conversation eventually turned to their personal plans and hopes for the future. "What will you do with your share of the money?" one of the young men asked the group's leader. "Probably invest in another startup," he replied with a smile. "There are always new opportunities waiting." Carl, who was nearby, overheard this conversation and couldn't help but smile to himself. Amid the well-dressed crowd, a solitary and modest figure appeared at the restaurant entrance. Louis, in simple clothes and a calm demeanor, paused for a moment to observe the scene. His presence stood out notably against the restaurant's elegant clientele, attracting curious looks and some raised eyebrows. However, Louis seemed immune to the inquisitive glances. With calm steps, he made his way to a quiet corner of the establishment. Jack, busy attending to the group of young entrepreneurs, cast a quick glance toward the entrance. Seeing Louis, his expression changed to one of barely disguised disdain. With a hand gesture, he called Carl. "Carl, go attend to that man," said Jack, indicating Louis with a slight nod. "I'll take care of our important guests." Carl, always willing to help, nodded without hesitation. He approached Louis with a genuine smile. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the garden. How can I assist you today?" Louis returned the smile. "Good evening, young man. I would like a simple meal and a glass of water, please." Carl nodded and led him to a cozy corner table, away from the main bustle. He ensured Louis was comfortable before heading to the kitchen to prepare his order. While serving Louis, he kindly asked if he needed anything else. "Is everything to your liking, sir?" he asked, placing the glass of water and the simple meal before him. "Yes, everything is perfect." "Thank you, young man," replied Louis, appreciating Carl's attention and courtesy. Carl withdrew to continue his other tasks, but kept an eye on Louis to ensure he lacked nothing. Meanwhile, Jack remained focused on the celebrating group, ensuring they lacked neither wine nor tapas, hoping for a generous tip at the end of the night. As Louis enjoyed his meal, he watched the restaurant's hustle and bustle with a calm and thoughtful gaze. Every gesture of Carl, every interaction with the customers, did not go unnoticed by him. The way Carl slightly leaned in when speaking to older customers, the way he discreetly adjusted a misplaced napkin, spoke of his commitment and professionalism. On the other side of the restaurant, Jack, always attentive, filled their glasses and offered the most expensive dishes on the menu, calculating in his mind the tip he hoped to receive. The night continued, and as the restaurant began to calm down, Jack's attention did not waver from the group of young people. His focus on immediate reward prevented him from seeing the value in Carl's actions, who continued to serve everyone with the same dedication and respect. Louis finished his meal and looked up at Carl, who was approaching to ensure everything was fine. "Can I bring you anything else, sir?" Carl asked, with his usual kindness. "No, thank you. Everything has been excellent," replied Louis. "I would like to speak with the restaurant owner, if possible." Carl, a little surprised, nodded and went in search of Jack. "The gentleman in the corner wishes to speak with the owner," said Carl, discreetly pointing towards Louis. Jack, still busy with his customers, frowned. "Tell him the owner is not available now. I am busy," he said impatiently. Carl returned to Louis's table and, with an apology on his lips, explained the situation. "I'm sorry, sir. The owner is not available at the moment. Is there anything else I can help you with?" Louis smiled and shook his head. "Don't worry, young man. You have done an excellent job. I appreciate your attention." The night at the Garden continued with its slow but steady rhythm, and while Jack continued chasing the approval and tip of his wealthy customers, Carl demonstrated that true service lies in authenticity and respect for all customers, regardless of appearance. Amid the hustle, the group of young professionals continued celebrating noisily, their laughter and voices rising above the rest. In contrast, Louis remained quietly seated in his corner. His serene presence was a point of calm amid the hustle. He observed everything attentively, taking note of every detail while enjoying his simple meal. Jack, always conscious of appearances, made sure to attend to the celebrating group with an almost exaggerated dedication. "Another bottle of wine, gentlemen?" he asked, leaning slightly towards them. "We have an excellent selection of Rioja that I'm sure you'll love." "Sure, bring us the best you have," responded the group's leader, without stopping laughing at a joke one of his friends had just told. As Jack hurried to fulfill their demands, Carl kept his focus on Louis. Every time he passed near his table, he made sure the man didn't need anything. "Is everything okay, sir? Would you like anything else?" he asked with a sincere smile. "No, thank you, son. Everything is perfect," replied Louis, grateful for the constant attention. The contrast in the service the two groups received was evident. Jack, obsessed with the potential big tip from the young group, practically ignored the rest of the customers. Carl, on the other hand, treated everyone with the same respect and care, regardless of their appearance or the amount of money they seemed to have. As the night progressed, the young group became more demanding. "Jack, we need more tapas here, and quickly," demanded one of them, waving his hand to get his attention. "Right away, gentlemen," replied Jack, forcing a smile as he headed to the kitchen. In his hurry, he almost tripped over Carl, who was carrying a plate of food to another table. "Be more careful, Carl," murmured Jack impatiently. "We can't afford mistakes tonight." Carl nodded, maintaining his usual calm. He knew the night was important, but he also believed that every customer deserved the same level of attention and respect. He continued his work, ensuring all diners were well attended to. The young group, unaware of the tension between the waiters, continued to enjoy their celebration. Their laughter and conversations filled the air, while Louis watched silently. There was something in the way Carl handled the situation that impressed him deeply. Finally, Jack returned to the group's table with a tray full of tapas. "Here you go, gentlemen. I hope you enjoy," he said, carefully placing the dishes. "Perfect, thank you," responded the group's leader, without taking his eyes off his phone. Carl, after ensuring Louis was fine, began attending to a couple at a nearby table. "Would you like anything else? Perhaps a dessert?" he asked with his usual kindness. The couple smiled and nodded. "Yes, please. What do you recommend?" Carl spoke about the desserts enthusiastically, describing each one in detail, but without exaggerations. Meanwhile, Jack remained focused on the young group, filling their glasses and bringing more tapas. In his eagerness to please them, he barely noticed other customers raising their hands, seeking his attention. Louis, watching from his corner, noticed the difference in service. While Carl moved with grace and efficiency, attending to everyone with the same dedication, Jack seemed overwhelmed by his focus on a single group. The bustle in the garden continued as the night progressed, but the atmosphere at the celebrating group's table began to change. The initial laughter and joy slowly faded, replaced by more serious murmurs and worried expressions. The group's leader, Ricardo, looked around, ensuring no one else was paying attention before speaking quietly. "We have to be realistic, guys. The acquisition is not the victory we thought it was. The truth is, the company was on the verge of bankruptcy." One of his companions, Elena, frowned, clearly worried. "What do you mean? I thought this meant security for us." "I know, but the debts are immense. The acquisition was more of a rescue than a successful purchase. We need to reevaluate everything," replied Ricardo, his tone reflecting the seriousness of the situation. The faces of the others darkened, the smiles disappeared, and the voices became more subdued. The reality of their situation became increasingly evident, replacing the initial euphoria with a sense of uncertainty and fear. Meanwhile, Carl continued attending to Louis and the other customers. Although he was a few steps from the celebrating group's table, he couldn't help but overhear fragments of the conversation. However, he maintained his professionalism and showed no signs of undue judgment or curiosity. "Everything okay here?" Carl asked Louis, his voice soft and respectful. "Perfect, thank you," replied Louis, observing with interest Carl's efficiency and calm. There was something in the way Carl handled his work that conveyed a sense of security and competence. Jack, on the other hand, began to notice the change in the celebrating group's mood. Worried about the possible decrease in his expected tip, he decided to intervene. "Is there anything else I can do for you? Maybe another wine or a special dessert to brighten the night?" he suggested, his tone filled with false joviality. Ricardo shook his head. "No, thank you, Jack. I think we've had enough for tonight." Jack withdrew, his mind working quickly to find a way to lift the group's spirits. It was clear that his strategy of exclusively focusing on seemingly more lucrative customers was not yielding the expected results. Meanwhile, Carl continued his work, ensuring every customer was well attended to. He passed near the celebrating group's table and noticed the somber expressions, but did not intervene directly. His focus was on providing impeccable and respectful service, regardless of each customer's individual circumstances. Elena sighed and looked at her companions. "What are we going to do now? We had pinned all our hopes on this sale." Ricardo took a sip of his wine, his expression grave. "We have to stay together and find a solution. This is not the end, just a complicated new beginning." Carl, returning with a tray of desserts for another table, felt the tension in the air. However, his commitment to his work and integrity kept him focused on his tasks. He approached the celebrating group's table once more, this time only to offer a gesture of courtesy. "If you need anything else, don't hesitate to ask," Carl said with a sincere smile, knowing that sometimes a little kindness could make a big difference. The group nodded, appreciating the gesture, although their thoughts were clearly elsewhere. The night continued, and the restaurant maintained its rhythm, but the feeling of tension was palpable. Jack, watching from a distance, began to realize that his focus on impressing and earning big tips was counterproductive. He saw how Carl handled the situation with a grace and calmness he could not replicate. Carl's genuine dedication and respect towards each customer were starting to stand out as the true value in the garden's service. The tension in the celebrating group was only a reflection of internal conflicts and external realities everyone faced. As the night progressed, the actions of Carl and Jack continued to outline a deeper narrative about the true nature of service and the importance of empathy and integrity in every human interaction. The revelation of the group's financial difficulties was just the beginning of a series of discoveries that would test not only their resilience, but also that of those around them. In the restaurant's quiet corner, Louis observed everything attentively, knowing that the real lessons were yet to be learned. The restaurant, The Garden, began to calm down as the night progressed. The tables slowly emptied and the staff prepared for closing. The group of young professionals who had been celebrating noisily now showed signs they were preparing to leave. Their conversations, once animated, had reduced to whispers as Ricardo, the group's leader, pulled out the bill and began calculating the tip. "Well, guys, this is what we can leave," Ricardo said quietly, placing a few bills and coins on the table. Elena looked at the tip and nodded. "It's a shame, but it is what it is. Come on, let's go." The group stood up, gathering their belongings and getting ready to leave. Their faces showed no signs of sadness or worry. Rather, they seemed to have accepted the situation as a simple reality. Meanwhile, Jack, who had been observing from a prudent distance, approached with a forced smile. "Was everything okay, gentlemen? Can I get you anything else before you leave?" Jack asked, hoping for a positive response. "No, we're fine. Thank you, Jack," Ricardo replied with a casual smile. "It's been an interesting night." Jack nodded and walked to the table to pick up the bill and the tip. When he saw the amount left, his expression changed drastically. Instead of the generous bills he had anticipated, there were only a few loose coins. He felt a wave of frustration and disappointment. "Is this it?" he murmured to himself, looking at the coins in disbelief. The group of young people, already at the door, showed no sign of noticing Jack's distress. They left the restaurant chatting among themselves, as if leaving a minimal tip was the most natural thing in the world. Jack stood by the table, trying to contain his anger. He couldn't understand how, after all his effort and dedication, the group had left such an insignificant tip. He felt humiliated and upset, questioning the validity of his actions and his focus on the seemingly more lucrative customers. At that moment, Carl walked by carrying a tray with the last dirty dishes of the night. Seeing Jack's expression, he stopped. "Everything okay, Jack?" Jack pressed his lips together, trying to stay composed. "No, Carl. Everything's not okay. These customers left me a few coins, after everything I did for them." Carl looked at the coins and then at Jack. "Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, some customers simply don't value the service as they should. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't give our best." Jack snorted, clearly dissatisfied with Carl's response. "It's easy to say that when you're not the one relying on those tips." Carl nodded, understanding Jack's frustration. "I know, Jack. But remember that our job is to treat everyone with the same respect and dedication, regardless of the reward." Jack reflected on Carl's words and the impact of his own actions throughout the night. His exclusive focus on economic gain had clouded his judgment, and now the consequences were clear. Louis watched in silence, noting Jack's internal struggle. He had seen enough to understand that there were important lessons to be learned, both by the employees and the customers. The night had been intense, and both Jack and Carl were exhausted, though for different reasons. While Carl continued attending to Louis with his usual kindness, Jack was dealing with his frustration over the meager tip from the celebrating group. At that moment, the restaurant door opened and Isabel, the owner, walked in. Her presence always radiated a mix of elegance and authority. Seeing her, Louis stood up and approached her with a warm smile. "Isabel, it's good to see you," said Louis, extending his hand. Isabel, with a look of surprise and recognition, shook his hand. "Louis, I didn't expect to see you tonight. It's a pleasure, as always." Jack, watching from a distance, frowned, confused. He didn't understand why Isabel treated this man with such respect. He decided to get closer to listen better. "Isabel, I've been here tonight observing how the restaurant is run. I wanted to see firsthand how the service is," explained Louis. Isabel nodded, curious. "And what is your impression?" "There is much to say," replied Louis, looking at Carl. "But first, I would like to thank Carl for his exceptional service. His respect and dedication are admirable." Carl, a bit surprised but grateful, bowed his head. "Thank you, sir. I'm just doing my job." Isabel smiled and then turned her attention to Jack, who was now visibly nervous. "Jack, come here, please." Jack approached, trying to maintain an appearance of calm. "Yes, Miss Isabel." "Jack, this is Louis Fernandez, the new silent partner of The Garden," announced Isabel. Isabel's words fell like a hammer. Jack's expression went from confusion to disbelief, and finally to fear. The new partner. Louis nodded. "That's right, Jack. I've invested in this restaurant because I believe in its potential, but tonight I've seen something that concerns me." Jack swallowed, feeling his heart race. "What concerns you, sir?" "Your attitude towards the customers," said Louis firmly. "I've seen how you focused solely on the group you thought was more lucrative and how you ignored other customers, including myself, because of their appearance." Jack lowered his gaze, feeling deep shame. "Sir, I'm sorry, I thought I was doing the best for the restaurant." "I understand that tips are important, but not at the cost of respect and equality," continued Louis. "Carl, on the other hand, has shown that true service is not just about making money, but about treating everyone with dignity." Isabel turned to Carl. "Carl, thank you for your dedication tonight. You have shown true leadership." Carl, still a bit overwhelmed by the situation, responded humbly. "Thank you, Miss Isabel. I just want to do the right thing." The night at the Garden was coming to an end, but for Jack, it was the beginning of a new phase of introspection and personal growth. The lesson had been hard but necessary. Meanwhile, Carl continued to be the example of how a true server should behave, and his attitude would continue to be the guide for the rest of the staff. The restaurant, The Garden, was quiet the next morning, with the staff gathered in the main dining room for a special meeting. Isabel had called everyone, and the expectation in the air was palpable. The murmurs died down as Isabel approached the center of the group, with a serious but hopeful expression. "Good morning, everyone," Isabel began in a firm voice. "I want to thank you for your hard work and dedication. Last night we had a very important visit, and some of you showed a level of professionalism and dedication that truly makes me proud." Carl, standing at the back of the group, felt nervous but maintained his composure. He had no idea what was coming, although Isabel's words gave him a slight hope. Jack, on the other hand, showed a mix of anxiety and regret. He knew that his behavior the previous night had not been the best, and Louis's presence had left him particularly uneasy. Isabel continued, "I want to share with you an important decision we have made, based on the observations and comments of our partner, Luis Fernandez." Luis's name caused a murmur among the staff. Most had not known that the modest man was, in fact, a key investor in the restaurant. Last night, Louis observed how we all work, Isabel explained, and there was someone who stood out for their exceptional service, dedication, and respect for all customers. That someone is Carl. Carl looked up, surprised. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. His colleagues began to applaud timidly as a wave of emotions washed over him. Isabel smiled, continuing, "Carl, Louis and I have decided that you will be our new manager. You have shown true leadership, not just in your work but in the way you treat others. I am sure you will guide this team to new achievements." The applause intensified as Carl stepped forward, still processing the news. "Thank you, Isabel," he said humbly. "It is an honor, and I will do everything possible to live up to the expectations." Isabel nodded, satisfied. Then her expression turned more serious as she looked at Jack. "Jack, you were also observed last night, and while your dedication and skills are undeniable, your focus and attitude need adjustments." Jack lowered his head, accepting the reprimand. "I understand, Isabel. I made mistakes and I want to improve." "We will give you that opportunity," said Isabel, "but you must learn that the true value in our work is not measured only by tips or the most lucrative customers. It is important to treat everyone with the same respect and dedication." Jack nodded with a determined expression. "I will, Isabel. Thank you for giving me this opportunity." Isabel turned to the rest of the staff. "I hope we can all learn from this. Our goal is to offer exceptional service to everyone who walks through that door, and we can only achieve that by working together and respecting each other." Carl looked at his colleagues, feeling a mix of pride and responsibility. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but he was determined to lead with the same spirit of dedication and respect that had always guided his work. Jack, for his part, felt humiliated but also motivated to change. The experience of the previous night had been a hard lesson, but necessary. He was ready to prove that he could be better, not just as a waiter, but as a person. The meeting ended with a renewed sense of purpose and unity. Isabel had made it clear that the future of the garden depended on the integrity and collective effort of everyone. With Carl as the new manager and Jack determined to improve, the restaurant was on the path to a new era of excellence and mutual respect. As the staff dispersed to start their day, Carl approached Jack. "I know you can do it, Jack. We all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them." Jack patted him on the shoulder, grateful. "Thank you, Carl. I will learn and improve. I promise." The two smiled at each other, aware that from that moment on they would work together not only to maintain the high standards of the garden, but also to build a work environment based on respect and collaboration. Under Carl management, the restaurant, The Garden, flourished like never before. Regular customers noticed the difference from the moment they walked in. A welcoming atmosphere and exceptional service that made them feel at home. The tables were always perfectly set. The soft flamenco music created a relaxing atmosphere, and the staff worked in impeccable sync. Carl had transformed the way the restaurant operated. His leadership, based on integrity and kindness, was reflected in every aspect of the service. He had implemented regular meetings with the team to discuss improvements and listen to their ideas, fostering an environment of collaboration and mutual respect. Jack, for his part, had taken the lessons learned very seriously. He worked hard to change his attitude and strove to treat all customers with the same dedication and respect that Carl demonstrated. He had learned to value the importance of every detail, from a sincere smile to a courteous gesture. "Good morning, Jack," greeted Carl one morning as they prepared the restaurant for the day. "How are things going today?" Everything is good, Carl, replied Jack with a smile. I'm ready for another day of work. Carl nodded, pleased with his colleague's progress. Remember, the key is consistency. Every customer who walks in deserves our best attention, no matter who they are. I got it, affirmed Jack. Thank you for your patience and for teaching me so much. The day went smoothly. Customers, both new and regular, left the restaurant with a smile, satisfied not only by the quality of the food, but by the friendly and professional treatment of the staff. The team at the Garden worked like a well-oiled machine, each member contributing their effort to create an unforgettable experience. That night, after the last customer had left and the restaurant had closed, Carl gathered the team for a brief talk. I want to thank you all for your hard work and dedication. We have achieved a lot together, and that is thanks to each one of you. The staff's faces lit up with smiles of gratitude. Jack, feeling particularly moved, spoke up. Carl, we have all learned a lot from you. You have been an exemplary leader and transformed this place into something special. Carl smiled humbly. Thank you, Jack. But remember, the success of the Garden is a collective effort. We all play a crucial role. As the night progressed and the staff dispersed to go home, Carl and Jack stayed a moment longer, reflecting on the changes of the past few months. You have come a long way, Jack, said Carl. I'm proud of you. All thanks to you, Carl, replied Jack. You taught me that the true value of our work is not in big tips, but in respect and kindness towards everyone. Carl put a hand on Jack's shoulder. Exactly. Keep it up, and the rest will come naturally. The restaurant, The Garden, continued to thrive, not only as a place of excellent food, but as a beacon of exemplary service and humanity. Carl Vision and the team's collective effort had created an environment where everyone felt valued and respected, both employees and customers. Over time, the reputation of The Garden grew, attracting more customers and cementing its place as one of the best restaurants in Madrid. Isabel, seeing the results, felt immensely proud of the team she had formed and the bright future that lay ahead. Carl and Jack's adventure, from that illuminating evening to their new insights and responsibilities, underscored the importance of respect, kindness, and leadership grounded in solid values. Thus, The Garden flourished not merely as a business, but as a shining example of what is possible when people collaborate with integrity and a unified purpose. As they switched off the restaurant lights, Carl surveyed the room with a sense of accomplishment. Let's head home, Jack. Tomorrow is another promising day. Jack, feeling rejuvenated and determined, responded, Yes, and I'm ready to face it. The future of The Garden glowed with promise, and with leaders like Carl and a dedicated team, it was poised to soar to new levels of success and acclaim. The journey of Carl and Jack, from that fateful night of realization to their new positions and understandings, vividly illustrated the power of mutual respect, genuine kindness, and leadership rooted in strong values. The Garden didn't just prosper as a business. It became a beacon of what could be accomplished when individuals work together with integrity and a shared vision. Carl, turning off the restaurant lights, looked around with satisfaction and pride. Let's go home, Jack. Tomorrow brings another amazing opportunity. Jack, feeling re-energized and full of resolve, responded, Yes, and I can't wait for it. The path ahead for The Garden was bright, and with leaders like Carl and a committed team, it was destined to achieve new heights and recognition. This story reminds us that although life is full of challenges, there is always hope for those who persevere with faith and determination. Remember, as this story teaches us, God always blesses good people. Everything happens for a reason, and even if we don't understand the reasons behind our difficulties, we must trust that happiness will come into our lives if we keep our faith and keep moving forward. The story also shows us the importance of being kind and supportive to those around us. The encouragement and belief made a significant difference. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. That way, you can get notifications of more inspiring and touching stories that will surely move your hearts. Each story I share is a reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the power of hope and faith.